Hey everybody, what is up Singapore? It is Donkey from Shrek, and I'm your new host of this podcast series, That's How.
Wait. Hold up. Did Donkey just hijack our podcast?
Yeah, I think so. What's going on?
That's right, fools. I am taking over. It's Donkey time, baby.
Whoa.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. Sorry for the confusion. Looks like Donkey got lost. I mean, we had to send him back to Shrek's swamp. Let's try this again. Hello, I'm Hong Bin Jun.
And I'm Rashawn Gidwani.
And welcome to That's How.
Now, jokes aside, you may be wondering, was Donkey really just in the studio? Did he really come to take over the podcast series? That's how?
Actually, you know what? Let's bring him back, but let's introduce him as his real self. He's a voice artist, actor, and host. He's Marlon Danshui, and he's joining us today on this episode to tell us all about how we can be Donkey.
Yeah, well, more specifically, how to become a voice actor. Hi, Marlon. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi guys, it's great to meet you. I am doing fine and dandy. Thank you so much. How are you guys?
We're good. Thank you so much for joining us today, Marlon. Okay, so to get the ball rolling, how did you get started as a voice actor? How did you become one? Was it always your dream? Were you always impersonating characters like Donkey from Shrek?
Yeah, I actually was. Ever since I was a young boy watching TV, I would always just be focused in, especially on animated series like The Simpsons. And I'm older than I look, so I was watching like Simpsons when it was in the 3rd or 4th season as a kid, and I would just imitate all the different characters, whether it's Mr. Burns yelling at Smithers, or Smithers responding to Mr. Burns, or Homer Simpson talking to his kids. And I would just keep doing that. And then someone eventually someday said, hey, we should pay him money to do that. It was more complicated than that, actually. I had a very, very long and winding road to becoming a voice actor. And I actually met, I don't know if you're familiar with him, the voice of Mario.
wow.
It's a me, Mario! Mario, Luigi, Wario, Charles Martinet. When I was an up-and-coming actor who wanted to get more work. And I asked him, I said, Mr. Martinet, I'm a huge fan. How do I do this as a job, basically? And he gave an answer which seemed very rehearsed. It's like, well, you just have to find the love in it and the passion. And, if you find that love and that passion, you'll do great things. And I thought, that's really inspiring. But I would like some practical advice, please, on how I can get money for doing the thing that annoys my friends all of the time.
That's exactly what we're looking for, right, on this episode. The
We
practical
yes.
advice. Because it's very nice to be passionate. And I mean, before we move on, congratulations. You have a great voice, Marlon. The Mr. Burns.
Thank you.
The Mario. I don't even want to attempt it. I don't think I'll be as good.
It's me, Mario.
Mario, Luigi.
Beautiful.
We tried.
It's beautiful.
You're the pro, Marlon. So before we dive into how we or if we can even become a voice actor just like you, what exactly is a voice actor? And give us the real definition, not the the passion behind it.
Absolutely. Well, listen. A voice actor is very simply, and this is going to sound like I'm being condescending, but I promise I'm not. It's a person who acts with their voice. That's really all it is. And people often focus on the voice part and not so much on the actor part. Because at the end of the day, voice acting is a subset of acting. If you're not a good actor, then you might not be a good voice actor. So the trick is, becoming an actor first. I'll get more into that later. But yeah, essentially, it's a person who uses their voice to deliver performances. And these performances can be anything from really dry and granular reading of technical manuals, like reading out an IKEA manual or how to install a toilet, or all the way up to acting in multi-million-dollar or even billion-dollar budget animated movies like, the recent Mario movie or the Minions films, or, something with, DreamWorks Illumination, all of the big players. So there's an enormous spectrum.
I see. Well, Marlon, you gave us a glimpse of the different voices that you can do. Not only Donkey, you can do Homer Simpson, you can do Mario, but how many exactly? How many different types of character voices can you do? Give us a glimpse of the other characters that you can voice.
How long do you have?
Give us like your top
All right.
3 or top 5.
Yeah.
My top 3. Okay, so we're talking cartoons or we're talking people, because I can do both differently. So I'll tell you what. I'll run through some people first. Okay.
You know, obviously, the first person that I really like to do is Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, it's very easy to do because a lot of people like to, you know, misrepresent him and say that he's like a, but he's not. He's actually like older and more grainier. And then if you make that a little more detailed and whimsical, well, you're talking to Christoph Waltz, and I was in Django. And then, of course, if you bring it down, you've got your classic Patrick Warburton. He's very soft-spoken, and he doesn't really like to mince his words. And if you take Patrick Warburton and move it down a little bit, well, then you've got yourself Ron Swanson, and, you know, famous for Parks and Recreation. And if you go the other way and make it more gravelly, then you've got Bob from Bob's Burgers. You got H. John Benjamin, also from Archer. Lana! And then, you know, there's also, you know, everybody does a Christopher Walken, you know, to various different degrees of success. But I think, honestly, one of my favorite ones to do is Sir Patrick Stewart. Is, you know, or as I like to call him, Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise. Yeah, I got a few more, but that's kind of my run through.
Can we hear the animation ones?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, I start with Mr. Burns, you know, but Mr. Burns these days, Seth MacFarlane took Mr. Burns and he made it a little more like Stewie Griffin, you know, it's a little more nasal like that. How you doing, Brian? Oh, you'll regret this, fat man.
And then, of course, you know, Peter Griffin, of course, I'm doing a terrible job of Peter Griffin, of course, you know, but he's sort of in this kind of area, you know, lowish. And if you go through Family Guy, you've got Patrick Warburton. He pops up again because he's Joe Swanson. And also, what is it? Cleveland Brown. Man, those are his mannerisms.
And you can't talk about Family Guy without a Quagmire. Giggity, giggity, goo. Then, you know, moving along into Futurama, you've got all of Billy West's characters. You've got Philip J. Fry, you know, the delivery boy who gets frozen, delivering Panucci's pizza. And then, of course, you have Professor Hubert Farnsworth. Good news, everyone. And another one of Billy West's voices is Dr. Zoidberg, which you can only really do if you have your fingers in front of your face like this.
And of course, Zeb Brannigan, Captain of Tomorrow. Kef, tell the crew I made it with a woman.
I'll inform the men, sir.
So that's, yeah, I can keep going.
Wow, that was amazing. Marlon, can we have you back?
Speechless, yeah.
I feel
Sure.
like we've had so many different characters
right.
join the show, and I'm like, where's Marlon?
Where's Marlon? Is he still in there? How do you find yourself after all of that? You have a great voice.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I've always been told that. I was told that by my parents, who have been very supportive. And then when I did my voices for my friends, they would say, "Shut up." But I could tell. I could tell that they liked the voice I was doing.
Hungbin and I were your best friends. Anytime you want to do a voice, you can call us up.
you.
Brighten up our days. Do you need to have a naturally good voice to become a voice actor, or did you train to also get the voice that you have right now?
I think yes and yes. They're both true. I have been fortunately blessed with a voice that naturally does this, but training is so important. And the older I get and the longer I do this, the more I wish I'd actually undergone more formal training, because it can be one of the most punishing things you can do with your voice. I mean, you're both obviously very used to, you guys talk for a living, among other things. You know how it can be when you have an extended session, you know, you're in hour X of an interview that you're doing, or you've read, you know, the news for the 50th time and you're reaching for the pepakao or, you know, your nebulizer. But yeah, there's a lot of things about classical acting techniques like breathing from the diaphragm and using, you know, head voice versus body voice. That's really important. Yeah, so it is, I think classical training is so important, but I think I've just been lucky to have my voice and that I haven't ruined it. You know?
I see. I mean, earlier you did show us such a wide range of different characters. So for you to become, to be able to become a voice actor, does that mean you need to have a range of different characters that you're able to do?
Absolutely not. It seems counterintuitive, but if you are just good at doing one particular voice, or if you just have the kind of voice that they want for that particular thing, you can have a career as a voice actor. You don't need a golden radio voice. You don't need to sound like you're from the 50s. Or, you know, have the classic shock jock, 89.3 FM kind of radio voice in order to... I love doing those radio voices. I do that riding the cabs in Singapore. I just mess with the taxi uncles by doing that. But yeah, you don't need that. You just... if somewhere... It's like being an actor these days. It really... You have a look for something. And it depends on what they are looking for. And
if this voice is what they want for a particular thing, then that's the voice they're going to go for. That's the voice you can do. And if that's the best, you know, if you're the best person at doing this particular voice and no one else can do, then you're going to be the guy.
Sorry, if you don't stop me, I just keep talking. That's one of the reasons I became a voice actor.
We're having so much fun right now.
I've been holding that laugh in. You're a true entertainer and showman. I'm speechless. It's amazing. But
Thanks,
to
man.
recap what you said, you found a niche, right? And based
Yeah.
on the examples you've shown us as well, you've definitely experimented with doing people voices and animated voices. I'm sure maybe you look up to Jay Farrow as an inspiration. So
The man's a legend.
and you're a
Yeah,
legend.
absolutely.
Now, are there
Oh, thank you.
specific genres or types of voice work you think are easier or harder to break into? Like I said, is it the people route or the animated voice route? Which one to you is more difficult or harder to break into?
I've always been blessed to be good to have a good ear for impressions. I think that's a very interesting route you can take, a route that you can take. Animation. Well, okay? We're talking about the business side of things. We're talking about how to actually get in as a career. I think the easiest things to do are independent animated projects because there's no bar to entry. They advertise openly on the internet. If you just know where to look, you can look on Twitter. You can look on Facebook. You can look on Instagram sometimes. They'll have castings. So the low budget stuff and low budget games as well. Independent games. They are, I'm not going to say low hanging fruit because there's an enormous amount of competition, but that's where you can look first in terms of accessibility. In terms of things being less accessible, I would say anime dubs. I still have not managed to get into anime dubs. And the main reason, I think, this is just my pure personal opinion, is because the vast majority of anime dubbing is done by companies like Crunchyroll that operate in the west coast of America, in California and around that area. And they cast exclusively from people living in that area. So that's a geographical location thing. So, and to a broader extent, the American radio market and voiceover market, because they really like people being based, not necessarily in the same state, but at least in the country. That's the big thing. So I think that's where the difficulty lies.
Well, other than the impersonations of the characters that already do exist, do you have your own unique character? How do you approach, creating a unique character, voice, or persona of your own?
Yeah. Well, I actually watched something on, I think it was a YouTube short, an interview with the great Jim Cummings. And if you're not familiar with him, for anyone who's not familiar with him, he's the voice of Winnie the Pooh. and many other. Yeah, that's a terrible impression of him. But he said, if you can do a perfect dead-on impression of an animated character or a person, that's great, and maybe you'll have a career that you can make out of that. If you do a terrible impression of a famous person or character, something that's so bad that it's not recognizable, that's a new character. You created a new character. So a key example of this is, for example, Fairly Odd Parents, the show on Nickelodeon. One of the, the boss fairy who's like big, like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type.
Clearly he was trying to go for an Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he ended up sounding a little more like this.
Yes.
So, Timmy Turner, you will report for Fairly Judy.
And so it's a bad impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but then it becomes its own character.
Right.
For me, I have an animated series that I did voices for that's on Netflix at the moment called Mermaid Magic. And that was a project that started all the way back in 2023 when I was approached by some people. For that, I just kind of, I played two characters. The first is a boy called Fred, who's kind of the guy in the chair, the tech wizard, helping these three mermaids and their friends like try and find this magical pearl. I'm not spoiling anything. This is literally in the first episode. And then, so for him, I wanted to kind of go for a real nerdy kind of character. So, because, I was playing a nerdy Asian, which clearly so far against stereotype. So I, so I kind of like cracked up my voice a little bit and it's like, oh, hey, Cecilia. Wow. Yeah, I can check that out for you. So that's like Fred. And then I also played his father, Mr. Red. And for that, I took sort of a transatlantic accent. So I made him go, because he comes from wealth and power. But, he's also just a friendly guy. I might have some secrets, but, I'm just one of the nice rich guys. And my son, he makes me proud. So I was playing, and there's a scene where I play the father and the son having a dialogue with each other. And it's great because I'm just like talking to myself. It's like, no, Dad, you don't understand. Listen, this is for your own safety, son. Oh, okay. So, it gets weird. It gets weird.
But the fact that you can
weird.
just switch characters
Yeah.
so fast is
So
amazing.
quickly. They're like gears to him, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for the gift that is you, Marlon. Wow. I'm so entertained. I think you found the magical pearl, which is your voice box. Once again. Good job.
Thank you so
Now, you
much. That's so
mentioned-
nice to hear.
Absolutely, man. You're welcome. You mentioned that you didn't have a lot of formal education. For our listeners, right, out there, they might want to become trained to become a voice actor. What kind of training or education did you pursue to get started, and what kind of training or education do you advise our listeners to get to become a voice actor, or are you self-taught? Explain to us how all of this happened.
That's a beautiful question, and it's a question I've been searching for the answer to, and I'm talking directly to the Marlon of 15 years ago when I say this, all right? Stop looking for one way in. There is no direct path, all right? There is no standard path. There is no well-worn path. Every single, even more than actors for stage and screen, every single voice actor has a different path and a different journey that they take, and there is no one size fits all. For my particular journey, I was a struggling actor. I just moved to Singapore. I had $3,000 in my bank account. That was all the money I had, and most of that was disappearing very fast for things like rent and food and other extravagances like that. And I got contacted by a woman, lovely woman called Tracy White, who was doing a children's show. I'm sure you guys are familiar with, the children's educational shows, like with the mascots that do like dances and they teach kids about things. And this one was for a book called Geronimo Stilton. It's a very popular mouse character, Geronimo Stilton. I think, Hongmin's showing some recognition there.
Love that book. Yes.
Amazing. So they had the mascots and they had the show planned out, but they needed a voice for Geronimo Stilton. And I was like, oh, okay. And to this point, I'd done one voiceover gig, unpaid, and it was playing basically a jerk version of Superman, and it never went anywhere. and I never saw any money of it, and it had never seen the light of day, right? So I said, all right, that's cool. We went to a recording studio, and I recorded for Geronimo Stilton. You know, I said, hello, everyone. It's your friend Geronimo Stilton, the most famous journalist on Mouse Island, editor-in-chief of the Mouse Gazette, that kind of thing. And then we sung some songs, talked about like traveling around. It was great. And then from that, Tracy then emailed me a couple weeks later or a month later saying, hey, I just want to touch base with you. I have some friends I've heard on the grapevine that they are casting for a animated series. And that was my big break. That animated series was called Oddbods. And it eventually ended up being really big. It was one animation. They called me into the studio, but I went in to record, and it was, several weeks of recording once or twice a week, and then they had all the stuff that they needed because it wasn't dialogue based, it was just sound based, and then they had it all together. So that has gone on strong. It's showed on Netflix, it was on Disney Channel, it was on a bunch of other things. It's online as well, and it got really, 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 really popular. So yeah, I'm the voice of Fuse and Pogo, and I don't say any words, but I just sort of make sounds. Like for Pogo, it's more like a and for Fuse, it's more like a
That's you.
And that's me. That's me. I'm the guy making the weird sounds. And then from that thing, another piece of luck happened where the recording studio said, hey, we have another animation studio that's recording with us. They're looking for voice actors. And that was the series Counting with Paula, which was on a lot of like MediaCorp stuff, like Counting with Paula, which then turned into another several seasons of that, and then another season of 1-2-3 Number Squad, and then after that was Paula and Pal. So they've rebranded it like 3 times, and it's still fun to do, really, really fun. And so I did like 17 or 18 different characters on that show, and because
do you have? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, not all at the same time. But yeah, so I was a pirate and a garden gnome and a talking. My favorite character,
Mr. Totemhead. He sounds like this.
And then his friend Buddy, who's basically.
Basically, it's my impression of Squidward.
So it's so I just had them like bantering with each other, and so after that, I just started getting more and more work, and it was still not enough to be like full time. But then I got my third big break, which was Universal Studios Singapore hired me, and then for the next 6 years I was the voice of Donkey from Shrek in a live show, Donkey Live. If your listeners have probably been to Sentosa and seen that show, and then when COVID hit, that show shut down, so they had to find a new place to put me. So they put me in the Transformers Live.
So then I became the voice of Optimus Prime.
And also Megatron, and I would just like insult people for fun as Megatron, which was the best job I've ever had to this day. It was amazing.
Goodness, maybe when I was there, you were the one insulting me.
Probably.
Did you find that I was really hypercritical of what you were wearing?
Yes.
Then that was probably me.
Oh my goodness! Now we finally meet.
Yeah.
But
the zeitgeist of voice acting.
Marlon, I mean, you have a range of different characters. We're having so much fun here, but could you maybe perhaps teach us how to do one character right now?
Okay, yeah. I'm more of a doer, not a teacher, but okay, we can try. All right, we're going to try to do a voice that I like to call nerd, right? So what you want to try, first of all, you get your regular speaking voice, right?
And then you want to make it as nasal as possible. So you want to move your voice up into your nasal passages. So say something like, hi, my name is Hongbin.
Wait, give me a second. Hi, my name is Hongbin.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you want to keep it like this. So you're moving your palate up here. You can kind of feel you have to deliberately stuff your voice up. So, and then now you want to add a little extra sizzle to it. So you just want to slightly crack your voice. When you've had those days when you're like slightly cracking the voice, like the vocal fry. If you've ever done like a valley girl, then you want to, it's like, I want to go to, oh my God, exactly. You got it.
Ice cream.
Ice cream and Chipotle.
You got it.
Guac.
Extra
Sounds so
guac.
good.
Well, there you go. You mastered that. And then if you combine both of them together, it's like,
Listen, sir, I can't serve you any more ice cream. It's falling down the front of your shirt. You're making a mess, and now I gotta clean it up.
so that's what I like. I call nerd.
Oh.
Wow. My earbuds. Is it earbuds? They're like having a full on celebration.
I should do ASMR, new revenue stream.
I mean, voice acting. What you've done today is really exceptional. It's beyond ASMR. It's its own genre, right? Marlon? Now, other than Jim Cummings, Jay Farrow, who do you look up to, and how important is it to have a specialized voice acting coach or mentor?
That's a great question. I look up to so many people. Someone who I look up to that I use as a model for my own voices is Billy West, aka the Man of 1,000 Voices. I did a little bit of his stuff before, but he's
done Philip J. Fry. He's done Professor Hubert Farnsworth.
He's done Dr. Zoidberg. He's done Zepp Brannigan. And he's done literally hundreds of other voices. And so I have so much respect for him. And he basically, Futurama doesn't exist without him. Like, he's like 80% of the voices on Futurama. Then there's John DiMaggio, okay, Crazy John DiMaggio. He is the voice of Bender. I can't do his voice. Like Bender Bendy Rodriguez is a real tough voice to do. It's never quite right. Someone else I really love is Frank Welker. He is the OG of animal sounds. If you've seen animals making a sound in basically any movie of like the 1970s earlier, or even later on, that's Frank Welker, and he's doing animal sounds. I can't do it, but he's amazing. Jay Farrow, obviously, just an absolute chameleon. I want to get as good as he does in doing, Morgan Freeman. But the thing about doing Morgan Freeman voices is I'm afraid I might just get canceled. So that's the danger when you're doing voices outside your ethnicity. You don't want to make it too much of a stereotype. So I think I'll leave Jay Farrow to Jay Farrow stuff and do what he do. But yeah, in terms of getting a voice coach, for some people, essential. For some people like me can just kind of muddle it through. But I have no idea how successful I would be if I did have a dedicated voice coach. One thing I would say is it is pricey. So this is not a cheap profession to undertake. I'll give you a quick rundown. My mic alone, $1,200. And it's not even the top of the range mic. It's a Sennheiser 416. It's kind of the standard one for a lot of character voice actors. My DAW, which is like the audio processing software. I have two different ones. They run me several $100s every year in subscriptions. Actually, probably close to $500-600 in subscriptions. The booth that you see that I built, actually my amazing wife designed and built most of it. I just kind of stood around and be like, yeah, I'll help you with that, honey. This booth, about $600 or $700, and that's cheap. If you want a fully sound treated experience, be prepared to spend thousands of dollars. And then there's my audio interface. That's about $300-400, but they can go as high as $2,000. Having said that, you can start this profession with as little as a couple $100s. You don't need the best mic. You don't need to build a sound treated booth. You can record in your closet. You can record in your bed under a blanket. One of my good friends, Katanya Tan, who does a huge amount of voiceover work, when she's on the road and she can't, find time to get to a booth, she literally does it under the covers, heavy blanket.
Oh, wow.
That's it for her iPhone mic. And sometimes that's enough, especially to get the audition. And then if they like you in the audition, then quite often they'll ask you to go record in the studio anyway.
All right. Well, speaking of auditions, let's say one of our listeners here, they're ready to become a voice actor. They want to audition for something. What can one expect from going into an audition for getting, voice acting gigs? Do you have any tips for them to prepare for such an audition?
Absolutely. I actually got advice from another very well-respected voice actor from Singapore. She goes by Yaya Papaya on Discord, but her name is Su Ling Chan, and she's done so much stuff. She's done a lot of video game work. She's done a lot of Singapore animated stuff. She's done some anime. I actually worked with her. That's the fun thing about this industry. You can work with people who you've never met in person or interact with at all. You're just in scenes with them. So I was in a show with her called Little Wild, which is a Singapore-produced show, which I recorded for here and she recorded for in Singapore or Malaysia. She says that the best thing you can do is to treat the script like an acting audition. Just treat it like an acting audition. And if the listeners aren't familiar with how to prepare for an acting audition, you get the script, you study the script, you can mark off key points where you think there should be emphasis. You write sort of, if it's like a scene rather than an ad, if it's a scene, you sort of think of what happened just before, like the moment before, to get sort of that emotional mood set to go into it. Obviously know your lines, but don't rehearse your lines in a set way every single time. Just get the lines in your head, however you want to do that. So then you are free to actually deliver the lines in a way that appears like spontaneous and in the moment. That's for like acting-based ones, character-based ones for an animation, etc. If it's for a commercial, study the brand, study the the tone. Usually, casting directors will be good about giving you the tone. They'll say like youthful, vibrant, energetic. So if I don't know, let's say if I had to do Money FM ad. So I'd be like, youthful, vibrant, energetic, but sort of maybe a little atas, right? You want to get, a bit high class, right? These people want to make money. So for like a little stinger, it would be like, Money FM 89.3. Make your money go a little bit further and stay ahead of the game. So it'd be something like that, where it's like you want a bit more smooth.
Well, we'll send that over to our bosses.
Yeah, that was amazing. You mentioned these key words, Marlon. Study, a lot of memory that even goes into what you've done today on this episode. All these different characters. A lot of discipline involved, I'm sure. So before we end off, what advice would you give to someone looking to make voice acting a full-time career?
It's such an interesting question because I thank you for being impressed with everything I'm doing. Voice acting isn't my full-time career. Even people at the top of their game, it's often not their full-time career. Like Su Ling Chan, she's been in like twice as many things as I have. She's still doing like side gigs. She's writing ad copy. She's doing a bunch of other things, and she's amazing at all of them. A lot of actors. The issue with voice acting is the same as the issue with acting worldwide. Often there's simply not the work there or the pay isn't high enough to make it a full-time career. And that's before you even get into sort of the effects of AI on the market. And some people would prefer a robot, deliver these things just because it's easier and they don't want to deal with people. Right. So I would say my key piece of advice, do not get into this industry for the money. You will burn out for that. Get into it because you have a passion to be heard. Get into it because you think you can, deliver something that no one else can deliver. Get into it because you just love animation and you want to create characters that people will find memorable. And I realize right now I'm sounding exactly like Charles Martinet when he said those things to me. You've got to find the passion and you've got to find the joy and just go with it. But I hope I've given you a little more detailed instructions on exactly how to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your passion speaks volumes, right? Mucho respect. 谢谢你. Terima kasih. G'day, mate. Thank you so much, Marlon, for joining us today. Truly. I think it really speaks volumes about how you've wanted to be unique and entertaining, and you've done exactly that. 1 + 1 is 11 in this case. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you so much today, Marlon.
My pleasure.
Well, this is how you can become a voice actor on That's How. I'm Hong Bin
And
Jung.
I'm Rashawn Gidwani.
Money FM 89.3.